Hey everybody, how's it going? There's a lot more people here than I expected. It's good to see everybody out and about again. Welcome back to the world. Deb.
Right.
How are you?
I'm all right. Better now. It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here.
Thank you for being here.
So you're going to ask some questions and then people out there are going to ask some questions?
I'm only going to ask 2 questions and then we're going to throw it to all of these fine folks.
Okay. Hi, everybody. That sounds good. What are your questions?
So my first question is, you are known for playing characters with unique emotional ranges and motivations. What's your favorite thing about playing villains and smoldering characters?
You know, it just happened. I didn't really, it wasn't something that I sought out necessarily. Heroes was, it's an oldie, but a goodie. It's crazy that was 15 years ago, right? I know I don't look a day over 15 years ago, but you know, I think in a certain way, Heroes and Star Trek happened at the same time, essentially. That was such a crazy, heady year. And so I got Heroes, and then within 6 months, I got Star Trek. And so it really solidified my presence, I think, in this kind of sci-fi, stylized world, and villainous, you know? Like, Sylar was such a cornerstone of that show. So people love to see you do what they associate you with, and so then for a long time after that, those were the things that came my way. That's starting to change though, which is nice.
So my follow-up to that then is, if you could pick any super happy, like heroic, awesome, giggly character that exists, who would it be?
I don't know.
I want to see you in a musical.
In a musical. Well, I've said this before. I don't think it's gonna, my favorite musical and the one role that I really would love to play on stage in a musical is Sweeney Todd, which feeds more into that darker aspect of my personality. So I don't know that that's gonna bring you what you want, but it's a masterpiece, and I'd love to do that someday.
It'll work. That works.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Good.
All right.
Well, let's hear what the people have to say, shall we?
Yes.
Hello.
Over here.
Oh, where? Oh, hi.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
It's over here.
I was just wanting to ask you, can you talk about the first time you met Leonard Nimoy?
Sure. Maybe some people have heard this story before. The first time I met Leonard Nimoy was in 2007 at Comic-Con in San Diego. We got into an elevator that was packed full of people, right? Like agents and handlers and security people. And I had never met him before. I met him in as we were waiting for this elevator. And we got in the elevator. His wife is the lovely Susan Nimoy, with whom I'm still incredibly close, was there as well. Is that applause for Susan Nimoy? Okay. She deserves it. And then we're sort of standing next to one another, and I was pretty intimidated. It was it was probably at least twice as many people as in here were there at Hall H, and we were announcing me playing the role, and he sort of looked down and said, you know, are you ready? And I said, I think I am. And then the elevator doors opened, and he said, you have no idea what you're in for, and he just walked out of the That was our first meeting, and then it evolved from there in a really incredible and beautiful way that I'm deeply grateful for and still feel very connected to him. Thank you.
All right. Well, first of all, thank you very, very much for coming to our FanX convention. We really appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Will you please share one of your favorite or your very favorite story or experience having to do with Benedict Cumberbatch on Star Trek Into Darkness?
Sure. Ben, there are a couple. Well, one, Star Trek Into Darkness, I think in a lot of ways, I know it wasn't everybody's favorite film, but for me, of the series, but for me it was kind of I had the most to do in that one in a lot of different ways, and so I felt really connected to it. And one of the things that I had to do was this epic fight with Benedict, and toward the end of the movie it takes place on this, and it took, I think it was 17 days that we shot just that sequence alone, between the first unit and the second unit, and special effects and stunts and all of that. And you really bond with somebody when you're in an experience like that. And so there was a shorthand that we developed between us that I really appreciated. But I think my favorite story, there was this running prank through when we were finishing that movie. We shot at this place in Northern California that was like I forget what it was. It was in Livermore, California. It was like this top secret, and so we all played this joke, and it was a successive joke, and it required this thing that we made up as neutron cream, and we made Benedict put it all over his face, and we told the story was that because we were filming in this place that had radiation, that this special cream was the only thing that would, between takes, would prevent radiation poisoning. And so they would come. We even had, I think we had somebody that would come and apply it. And there was just this spirit of fun at that time, and he was a great sport about it. So that's probably one of my favorite memories from that. Yeah, thank you.
So I followed your career from the very beginning. Out of all of your, all of the parts you've played,
okay,
what was your favorite and why?
Oh, I think probably my favorite stuff I've done has been on stage. I definitely feel like my connection to the theater is something that I keep coming back to, and so doing the Glass Menagerie, for example, on Broadway in 2013, doing Angels in America in 2010. Those two experiences, I think, if I could have the same amount of experience with people, and my work could have the same reach just doing theater, I would probably just do theater. But we don't get to have these kinds of interactions, and so it's a bit of a slight limitation. But yeah, in terms of film, I think Margin Call for me, playing Peter Sullivan in Margin Call, because that's the first movie I produced, and sort of launched a whole other aspect of my experience in my career. So yeah, thank you.
Hello. So you kind of answered my original question, but I guess my second question then is, what was your favorite scene to film as Spock?
It's tough because Kirk Stetson, someone up here said, it's tough because there were each movie had its own personality, and I think I don't know. I mean, yeah, it's hard to say. I can't really narrow it down to one particular scene, but I will say that accumulation of the experience just makes me want to do another one.
Do you have a scene that stands out in your memory?
Well, that fight scene in the second movie, I think, really does. It was so intense. It was really it pushed me in ways beyond my comfort zone that I actually really appreciate and enjoyed in the end. Maybe not every day when I was filming it, but in the culmination of it, it was something that was really cool. So I would probably say that sequence. Yeah. Hi.
Hi. So I've seen some videos of you on Instagram playing banjo.
Yes.
And as a banjo player, I just wanted to know how you got into that.
You play the banjo?
My dad builds banjos.
He builds banjos?
Yeah.
Really?
I can get you his information if you want a custom banjo.
I mean, I should definitely get that information. Can we have somebody get the information from this young lady? Thank you.
Well done.
Where is he here?
He's not at FanX, but he's in
But
Salt Lake.
in Salt Lake City,
Yeah.
I mean? Oh, cool. Yeah, I was about to start shooting American Horror Story Asylum, and I wanted a hobby on set. For me, it's very difficult, you know, when I'm working on set, right, you have these long days and you have long stretches of downtime, but you never know when they're gonna end. So the way that my mind works, it's difficult for me to fully immerse like reading a book is kind of hard because I feel like I need to get lost in that experience, and I never know when I'm gonna get interrupted and have to put it down. So going into that season of the show, I thought, I want a hobby. I don't wanna learn how to knit. And I've always been, what? Oh no, I'm not knocking knitting. I'm sorry.
You just lost a
No
big
shade.
chunk of
Yeah, I
your
lost
fan
the
base.
fan. She storms out. She's like, he doesn't like knitting.
Down goes the box office
I
for
just
the
didn't-
next movie.
I just didn't want to learn how to knit, but I value and respect people who do. I wanted something that I could do, and I'd always loved the banjo. Steve Martin is a huge influence on me. Growing up, I loved Steve Martin films. I was always excited when new ones came out, and you know, he's pretty much the foremost banjo player in the country, like kind of like top. So I really love listening to his music, and that's why I did it. And so I now play a number of Steve Martin songs on the banjo, and certainly nowhere near as well as he does, but I love it. It's great. It's very meditative, and I really will check out your dad's stuff. Thank
Right over here.
you. Have a great day.
Your dad owes you big.
What?
Hi. I was wondering, were you a fan of Star Trek before you got the role of Spock?
Really putting me on the spot here, huh?
They said no political questions.
You know, I wasn't. No, I didn't feel connected to it per se. I grew up, you know, like the first Star Wars movie came out the year I was born, and I grew up more in that world. But in a way, I'm actually more grateful for that because it allowed me to cultivate a real appreciation for it through a very unique experience, right? I wasn't just a fan of it, I was actually part of it. And so I have a deeper appreciation for it now, I think, as a result, because I really learned what a visionary Gene Roddenberry was, and just, you know, how, you know, you look at today, I mean, you have all of these different films, you have all of these different series, they just keep coming, they just keep, you know, and I think that it's a testament to what he was plugged into. And it's a testament to all of you, you know, who see yourselves in these stories. And I think that's something that was ahead of itself, you know, giving people representation in ways that were really unique and valuable to a culture. And it still endures. You know, I know some of you are here for other things, but, you know, it's a lot of you are here for Trek, and that's, I think, a testament to his integrity and his vision. So now I feel like I have a deeper appreciation for it. Thank you.
So my question is, did you improvise any of your lines?
In Star Trek?
And in Star Trek, and if so, what were they?
Well, Spock's not real, he's not, I mean, I've improvised lines and other things, but Spock pretty much knows what he's gonna say and when he's gonna say it, I think. So I can't really remember ever improvising anything, no.
It's not a character built for one-liners to
Yeah,
just throw out.
he doesn't really fly from the hip so much, you know what I mean? But thank you for your question. Yeah, have a good day. Hi.
Hi. You got super close to my question, so I'm just skipping on to my next one.
Awesome.
Okay.
So, with us being huge nerds everywhere in this building, what is one thing now before Star Trek that you would consider yourself to be part of the geek community?
Like what's one thing that I'm
Interested in?
I'm a real theater geek.
I love that. I love that.
I can really, I can get lost on YouTube watching just like Dorothy Loudon sing Sondheim. You know what I mean? Like very into like old theater performances and the history of theater, and that's my nerdy outlet, I would say.
Can you still do all the words to "I am the very model of a modern major general"? I'm not asking you to do them here. I'm just really curious because you won an award for that role.
The way that my memory works, honestly, I learn things very quickly, and then I also forget them very quickly when I don't need them anymore. And considering that was literally, let's see when that was. That was 1994. So that was a long time ago. I can't say, I know the first line or two, but I don't think I could give you more than that. Thank you for your question. Hi.
Hi. I'm wondering if you can tell us about Boys in the Band and what it was like to bring that story to life.
Sure. It was an incredibly unique experience. I've never had the absolute pleasure of working on a play for about 6 months and establishing these really deep connections with my fellow castmates, with many of whom I already knew and had friendships with, but then taking those friendships onto the stage on Broadway, and then we had a year off, and then we got to come back and do the film. So it was something like I've never experienced before. It was great fun. I've had a lot of my character on Heroes was this way, right? Like there was a lot of time in the first 7 episodes of Heroes talking about Syler, and then that made the impact of Syler all the more significant when he showed up. Similarly with Harold and Boys in the Band, the first 30 minutes of the play are spent talking about Harold and where's Harold and where's Harold, and then all of a sudden he shows up, and by that time people are really excited for him to be there. So that kind of dynamic of it also was something that was unique and interesting. I got to sit up in my dressing room putting on my wig and my makeup and getting ready to go on stage for like 30 minutes, listening to the audience react to the play that was happening. And then I got to, I had the real privilege in that experience of understanding the dynamic of the audience, which changes every night when you're doing a play. So I got to hear the nuances of their reactions, and like sometimes I'd be putting on my makeup and being like, oh, they're not laughing tonight, like we're not funny for them tonight, you know, and bring that energy on stage. So that was something really special. And then just the whole experience of taking something that like you're playing it for an audience in a theater, and then understanding how to modulate that performance for film. And having many more people be able to see that than would have if we had just done it on stage. So yeah, you got to see the play or just the movie? Right, so you got that experience of it, which we're really grateful that it got to have that grander reach. So thanks for watching it. Yeah.
How are you?
Good, how are you?
Fine. You've touched a little bit on Leonard Nimoy, but what I'd like to know is what's it like to, fill the shoes or continue the legacy of such a popular, iconic character as Spock? Mm-hmm. Not taking anything away from, I love you on Heroes and other stuff, but come on, he's been around my whole life, 50 years plus, and I just want to know what your feelings are now that you've become a Trekkie.
Sure.
So what is your feelings on replacing?
I do think it, I don't see it as filling the shoes, right? There's no one that can ever, I've always said to Leonard, when he was with us, I always called him number one. And that was really how I saw it, you know what I mean? He was the originator of that role, and no one will ever fill that space. But I do see it as continuing a legacy, right? Continuing the legacy of the character, and now continuing his legacy, and doing it with as much integrity and respect and investment as I can in the process. And I'm a big believer in I'm a big believer in our experiences being bigger than just these bodies that we walk around the world in. And so, I still feel very connected to him. I still feel very, much in tune with him. And I very much hope we get to do another film so that we can tell one more story in that tradition. And yeah, we'll see how that goes. Thank you.
Other than a banjo, do you play any instruments, and what are they?
I don't play any other instruments. That was why it was kind of weird for me to play the banjo, because most people would be like, maybe start with the guitar. It's a little more common. It's a little easier. But I just always was. I didn't really want to play something that I would have to work really hard to get half as good as most people that pick it up. You know what I mean? Like a lot of people play the guitar and a lot of people play it really well. Not as many people play the banjo, and even fewer play it really well. So I thought I would aspire to that. Yeah. Thank you.
Big fish, small pond.
Hi.
Hi, my name's Erica.
Hi, Erica.
Big fan of all of your work. And
Thank you.
so I was rewatching Heroes and Heroes Reborn, the miniseries. So I'm wondering, between the timeline of Skylar having his redemption.
Okay, wait, Erica. How big a Heroes fan can you be if you don't know that it's Syler, not Skylar?
Oh no.
Oh my gosh, I'm sorry.
You know what I mean? I don't mean to put you on the. Don't boo her, but we just have to.
I mean Sylar.
Syler, yes, yes.
With the redemption of Sylar.
Yeah.
From the end of season 4.
Right.
And the miniseries.
Right.
Heroes Reborn. What was he like? Well, accepting the being, good and all, and.
Right. What's the question?
The redemption.
About redemption?
Yeah, I think she's wondering what was Sylar's motivation for redemption? Where did that come from? What do you think?
It's been a while, Erica. I have to say that, I feel like my experience on that show, it was such a crazy time, and when it ended, so many other things happened right away that I didn't spend much time thinking about it after I finished. So I can't really answer it, also because I didn't get a chance to watch Heroes Reborn, so I don't know sort of how Sylar factored into that version of it, if he did at all. But I'm glad you're such a fan of it. Thank you so much. Nice to meet you. Hi.
Hi. I was just wondering, if you actually were on the USS Enterprise, what job would you want?
Oh, I dig this question. This is awesome. This is exciting.
I would want to be. I was gonna say actually, I'd like to polish all the railings and just make sure everything is shiny. Because who does that? You know what I mean? Somebody's got to do that.
You gotta have that attention to detail.
Sure.
Sure.
Hi.
Hi. So I was wondering, what was your emotions when you found out that you got the role for Dr. Oliver Thredson in season 2 of American Horror Story?
Well, it's interesting. I can say that I had done the first season of American Horror Story. I was just a guest star, right? I just did 3 or 4 episodes of that season of the show, and I had gotten an offer to do another television show, which I won't mention, but it was another kind of, it was in a similar vein, and it was very, it was appealing. I was excited by that offer, and it was something that was already, it was happening, and they came to me, and I said, okay, I was talking to them about it, and then Ryan came and was took me to dinner and was I want you to do the second season and he pitched me the whole story, and so suddenly I was in this situation to have to decide between these 2 opportunities, and so I decided to do American Horror Story because I was going to have the opportunity to work with Sarah Paulson, who's one of my dear friends, and to work with Jessica Lange, and I felt like that was what drew me into it. And the other thing was going to happen, but it was a little bit less of a known quantity. It ended up being its own successful show, and I think it would have been fun to work on. But I'm really glad I had the experience I did with American Horror Story, because it's really fun to work with your friends. Yeah, thank you. Sir, I'm sorry, you have a creature on your shoulder?
Yes.
This cosplay is amazing.
Thank you.
I'm dying.
Good work.
Thank you.
How are you?
Doing great. Question for you, as you worked with Leonard Nimoy through the first and second film, what advice did he give you as you took over the mantle of playing Spock?
Right. You know, Leonard wasn't really one for giving advice. You know, most of what I learned from him, I learned from observation and from experience of interaction with him, but he wasn't really like interested in shaping my own experience. He was very, Leonard was a very sort of confident, grounded person, and he was interested in me having my own experience, and so I asked him questions about what his experience was, but I didn't really, there was nothing really in there that I didn't need. You know, all I needed to do was trust JJ, which is not hard, and trust the scripts. You know, and so I didn't feel like there was anything, you know, that I needed to learn that I couldn't learn from watching Leonard's performances or understanding the role of Spock in the canon of Star Trek. And so, yeah, he kind of let me do my own thing, you know. I took it as a compliment that he didn't kind of feel the need to, like, correct me. Yeah.
Was he right when he told you didn't know what you were getting into?
Well, yes. I mean, you know, that was a long time ago. That was 15 years ago, and I didn't know what it would be, what the journey would be. I learned how to assimilate the journey in my own way, and that's, I think, you know, something that can only come from experience. So it's never been anything other than a joy to be a part of Star Trek and to, you know, meet people all around the world for whom it's significant. And so, yeah, I think he was right. Sure, he was always right.
Huge fan.
Thank you.
When doing the role of Sylar in Heroes, did you build him kind of from the ground up, or was he scripted to be the cold, mechanical, methodical killer?
You know, it was a combination of things. I think that there was a certain. He was written very well. It was especially in the first season. You know, I think the quality of the stories. You know, Sylar was never meant to be around for as long as he was around. Originally, he was only supposed to be on the show for about 8 episodes. He was supposed to die in the first season, but people really liked him, and so, you know, whenever, especially those days, like, right, that was a time, you know, Heroes really was one of the last kind of huge, like, monolithic network shows. Things really changed a lot after that. And so at the time, when a network liked something and people responded to something on a network show, networks didn't really know how to do anything other than to say, we want more of that thing, even if it's anathema to the integrity of the story, which it ended up being in the case of Sylar and Heroes. He should have died much sooner. You know, honestly, we got into territory later on where, you know, we were breaking our own rules just to keep the character around, and that's always dangerous, you know. So I think but it was really well written at first, and I think that part of that helped me inform the character, and then a lot of the psychology of how he ended up the way he was kind of fed in. So I think it was a combination of things, you know. There was a perfectionism and a vulnerability that was around feeling abandoned, feeling, you know, like this pressure of like nothing was ever good enough, and I think that really fueled him and drove him, and there's a kind of, yeah, methodical thing that happens in that. Yeah. Thanks. Hi.
Hi. I'm a huge fan
Thank
of
you.
Nosferatu.
Oh, okay.
And so I was wondering if you can talk a little bit about the different aging, all the makeup that your
Girl.
character had to go through and what that was like.
Yes. You know, I was invited to do that show. I was resistant at first. I will say I was like, I don't know, you know, this feels kind of like been there, a little bit like villainy and whatever. But I read the book, and I think Joe Hill's book is so excellent. He's such a great writer. And Jamie O'Brien, the showrunner, was super cool. And Kari Skoglund, who directed the pilot, was great. I just felt like there was cool people involved in that project. That's what ultimately ended up. And I got to reunite with Joel Harlow. Joel is the amazing special effects makeup artist who did a couple of the Trek films with us, and he did all the makeup for that. And so that was really exciting to get to collaborate with him and build that out. The 3.5 hours in the makeup chair every day wasn't something that I was really factoring into my decision. So in the end, that was a challenge. But I think Joel did such incredible work with that makeup, and I was grateful to be able. It helped me so much to inhabit these different versions of the character. We had 5 phases of aging for that character, ranging from like the least sort of evolved to the most grotesque. And so we would go through each episode and identify together like which phase of aging, that we would do, and then that's how that worked out. It was cool, but it was definitely it was a lot of added consideration for costumes and for makeup and hair, and for me in as an actor. It was good. It was a good experience, but it was challenging. Yeah, thank you.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
I was wondering, as an actor, do you ever have any rituals or habits that you need to do before you get into character or go on stage for any performance?
They develop. I would say I have many more rituals or habits when I'm doing a play, because the process of doing a play is in itself very ritualistic, right? You show up at the same place at the same time. You say the same thing standing in the same place and doing the same thing 8 times a week. And so invariably you enter into this routine, which I love so much. So for me, those patterns are how I get to the theater, what time I leave my house, which way I go, where do I get a coffee, do I get, where, it's like, it's not superstitions. It's just like when I was doing Boys in the Band, for example, like, I have to be at a certain point in my process at a certain time, to know that I'm going to make it to be ready to like drop in and like get ready to walk on stage when I have to. So in theater, like it's all built around ritual. It's all built around, less so with film and TV, because on the other side of the spectrum, film and TV is about capturing moments, and moments that will only ever exist once and then never again. And so for me, being in a film and TV project tends to be much more about freeing up my experience and then being available to whatever instincts and impulses come in the moment. So it's less about ritual. But music's really important to me. Like I use music a lot in my process, and coffee. Thank you. Coffee.
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good, thanks.
Was working on American Horror Story ever emotionally draining for you?
Yes, actually I would say American Horror Story was one of the only times that I felt the weight of like the emotional weight of a character I was playing. I think in large part because Thredson, I based Thredson on I did a lot of real life serial killer research for that. And so I had to look into the psychology of some really, really dark stuff and dark people. And the set for American Horror Story, so much of it took place in that asylum, and that set was so incredible, but it was freaky. Like there were parts of that set on a soundstage that if we weren't populating, like in other words, if we didn't have crew and equipment and people in that part of the set, and like you wandered in there, like it was dark, So I would say it did have a kind of, now that was counteracted by the fact that like it was we were in Los Angeles. It was a beautiful time in my life, like my friends and the ensemble on that show, and we all had a really good time together. So there was a really counterbalance to the darkness, but yeah, it was pretty freaky. Thank you. Hi.
Hi. You have narrated quite a few audiobooks. How did you get into that? How do you decide what you're going to narrate, and what are you reading now?
What am I reading now? Like myself in my own life? Oh. I love voiceovers. I've done, yes, audiobooks, I've done some films, I've done some animated shows. Invincible is one of them. Big Mouth is another one. The Proud Family is another one. And so I love just the process of doing voiceovers. Audiobooks are tough, actually. They're probably the hardest format that I've engaged so far, because you have to tell this whole story and you're the only voice and all the characters and stuff. So it really comes down to where I am in a headspace, if I have time and if I'm interested in it. You know, I did The Dispatcher with John Scalzi for Audible, and that was something that was unique, and then I did the sequel to that. So, but I haven't done too many of them, and I do them sparingly. I'm reading a memoir right now called Between Two Kingdoms by a young woman named Sulika Jawad. Yes. Which is a really moving and empowering story about her journey and both her physical journey and her spiritual journey. I love reading memoirs, and it's tough for me to read recreationally because I have to read so much for work and for my production company and stuff. But these kinds of things I get to read on the plane as I'm traveling and stuff. So I like that. Anyway, yeah. Thank you. Good luck too.
I think we have time for one more question.
Oh, perfect.
All right,
Last question.
Spider-Man.
Hi, buddy.
Hello.
How are ya?
Which Star Trek movie was the hardest to do?
Great question. Thank you for that question. I like your outfit. I think the hardest one for me to do was the second one, Star Trek Into Darkness, because it was it was the most physical. Like, I had to do the most stunts, and it was the most kind of emotional, the darkest one that we did, right? The first one was kind of like, hey, meet this version of these characters and introducing us to the audience. And then the last one was a little bit of an adventure story, right, for all the characters to come together. But that middle one was like kind of the darkest and scariest. So that was, I think, the hardest one. Thanks for your question.
Ooh, yeah. You know what? We can do one more. We have time for one more question. So excited. Made it.
Hi, Zach. My name is Sean.
Hi, Sean.
And I wrote down my question so I didn't forget it. So my question is, after being in acting and theater for so long now, do you ever find yourself mirroring the traits or the qualities of the characters that you've played in your daily life?
Well, I think I bring qualities of my personal, my personality to characters I play, so it's kind of a two-way street. But I don't know. I mean, you know, again, like when I'm doing a play, I think the lines get a little blurrier because, you know, there's something that happens physically, right? If you do the same thing, even if I understand the separation between real life and this imaginary world, my body doesn't really understand the difference. So if I'm going into the same thing and doing the same thing over and over again, my body starts to absorb the patterns and the physicality of a character. So I do find, like, when I'm doing a play, there are physical traits, or if I'm, you know, I don't know, yeah, if a character has a certain kind of physical characteristic, then sometimes I find that bleeding out in my real life. But I think I'm sane enough to really keep the boundaries pretty clear. I'm not an actor who's interested in getting lost in a character I'm playing. I like to approach it a little bit more objectively, and then kind of integrate it that way. So yeah, thanks for your question.
That was really well done. You got through the whole line. You are like attention to detail. Well done.
Is that everybody?
I think that was everybody, and we have 1 minute left for everybody to say thank you so much
thank you all
for
so
being
much.
here. This was amazing.
Thanks for having me.